be joined by Martin Finucane, who's a Principal Officer for the International and Offshore Energy at the Department of Environment and Climate Action.
We definitely see the policy system now realising that we need to break the link with Eastern energy sources permanently, not just temporarily. And in order to do that, the rate of change of European policy in particular really does have to fundamentally change. And I think the issues we're looking at here today at the seminar couldn't be more timely in that respect. Last week, in response to the events, we saw EU ministers meet at an emergency council in Brussels on Monday. In our system, it's very clear. We basically have a continental scale resource with a small island electricity demand. That means that we should be one of the first that can be looking to develop offshore renewable resources, not just to meet our own national demands in electricity. And we should also be looking to make use of our natural resources to meet that supply crisis in Europe. And working with our European partners will be critical here to develop that integrated grid system, to develop the route to market, and to work alongside a lot of the national initiatives we're currently working on to ensure we have a fully operational offshore system in place.
For ado, I'd like to introduce the next speaker, Sean Kelly, MEP.
To make our own energy is, of course, the best answer. We must do more in facilitating offshore and onshore wind. We are changing how we produce electricity. Therefore, we need to look at changing the energy so that it fits the specific characteristics of renewables. This is what makes the Supergrid such a dynamic solution, integrating European electricity grids to free up the best renewable resources and connecting them to all of Europe.
Without further ado, I'll move across to our colleague Marcus Byrne, who's the chair of the Wind Energy Ireland Working Group and for Supergrid, just to give a presentation on the Wind Energy Ireland position paper on Ireland and the Supergrid.
The end result is that there's going to be a huge requirement for over 2,000 gigawatts of renewables to decarbonise the European energy system. As has already been pointed out, we have rich renewable resources in Ireland, as well as other northern seas, such as the North Sea and Baltic Sea. But we've also got a huge amount of solar resource in the south. And what we want to push forward is connecting these areas of rich resource with demand centres predominantly in Central Europe. So what will occur is a Supergrid will act like a motorway in rapidly moving power from areas high of resource to the major demand centres. So the advantages that a Supergrid really offers is being able to tackle decarbonisation on a continental scale. Climate change is not a challenge that is faced independently. We need to unite as a continent and as a union and tackle climate change together, as this will result, one, in the most effective response to climate change, but also from our energy system offer the most efficient manner of tackling climate change. When we consider what's ongoing now with gas and oil, what it offers Europe is the opportunity to become energy independent. So we will no longer depend on other entities and other countries for our energy. The images shown here on the right are taken from a study by E3G and Imperial College, released just over a year ago in the UK, showing the differences between two scenarios for the development of grid and integration of renewables in the North Seas. And what you can see highlighted most importantly is that moving towards a coordinated approach nearly halves the actual cost of the network development. And really the key benefits beyond the cost are from the environmental perspective, whereby potential delays due to individual grid projects being held up is reduced. And as a result, there's actually less duplication on the quantity of electrical cables needed, as well as offshore infrastructure. So developing the grid for Ireland would allow us to become a net exporter of power. The age of the Supergrid has arrived, and it will play a major role in decarbonising the world and ultimately bring cheaper electricity to consumers, as well as achieving our climate change ambitions.
Further ado, I'll move on to our next speaker, Vasiliki, Klonari, head of the Energy System Integration at WindEurope. So
we also need to create the right incentives and rewards for TSOs and DSOs to invest in grid optimization technologies. So as it stands, the regulatory framework is not enough to incentivize network companies to invest in this. It actually favors TSO investments in high capital grid infrastructure over cheaper and easily deployable grid optimization technologies. And this has been acknowledged already by ENTSO-E and by Acer, who even published a paper recently.
But not least, a very patient Robbie Aherne, head of Future Networks, is going to join us now to share his insights. So Robbie, over to you.
Really, 2030, Ireland is going to be there. We're really into interconnection, hybrid interconnection projects, and really the development of that super grid. Eirgrid Group are involved, and they've come up a number of times already in two key areas. So first of all, the North Seas Energy Cooperation. Those representatives from those different countries, whether it's governmental, TSOs, etc., would come together to see how we can cooperate and look to develop essentially super grids or offshore network development plans. Look, there's benefits to offshore network development. Marcus has touched on a lot of them, and to be honest with you, I'd be very much on the same page. Decarbonise Europe, improve our security of supply. There is that variability as well, that the offshore wind resource of Ireland is not in sync with the renewable weather, with the weather patterns in Europe, and that is a good thing, because that's where we want to be, and it allows us, I suppose, free feed power at a pan-European level.
I suppose we're coming to the end of our time here on the Q&A. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank all of our panelists. Some really good insight and fascinating points and insight into the challenges ahead. By no means an easy feat ahead, but I want to echo the words of Martin there, just the change of pace in industry and the urgency that comes with it, with the crisis in Ukraine in particular. It's certainly something I think everyone in industry needs, put shoulder to the wheel on this one to get it right. It's very